As long as that don't happen during a meeting, we're
7.
golden.
7.
It's 7 o'clock.
We're back in action here. Everybody calm down. Good. That's perfect.
All right, we rolling?
Yep.
Good evening. My name is Christy Keeler, and I am a sales specialist that works with Farmers Co-op. We wanted to welcome you this evening to our virtual meeting experience that we have been putting together with Farmers Co-op. Just to remind you guys, if you are joining us tonight via Zoom, all the lines are muted. If you guys are joining us on the Zoom, down in the bottom left-hand portion of your screen is an option to join with the audio. You can join via the computer audio or via dial-in, and the dial-in number will pop up when you select that option. If you got any questions tonight and you're joining us off of your mobile device with the Zoom app, in the bottom right hand of the screen will be 3 little dot icons that shows more. If you tap on that, it'll bring open another little window, and it will give you the option to chat in your questions. If you're joining us on the computer, in the bottom middle fraction of your computer screen, you will see the chat box there. You can type in any questions there. As we are streaming this live tonight onto Facebook, on the Farmers Co-op Facebook page, we will be continuing to monitor that throughout tonight's session and drop any questions that you might have for our speaker, Scott, tonight about wildlife, and we'll address those at the end of the presentation. So if you don't mind, drop us a note in, let us know where you're joining from. So I'm located on the eastern side of Tulsa, Broken Arrow. And Scott, where are you joining us live tonight from?
San Antonio.
Perfect. So with that, Scott, we appreciate you taking the time out of your evening to join us tonight to talk to us about feeding some wildlife during our fall and winter months.
Well, thank you, Christy. Appreciate all the efforts of putting this together along with the Farmers Co-op and hosting this meeting tonight. So kind of tonight, we'll just spend a few minutes talking about what I call some feeding opportunities, for lack of a better description. Next slide, Christy. You know, a lot of people, when we start talking about deer, we all like to feed deer kind of deal. And what we'll go over tonight a little bit is, you know, there's a lot of different products you could feed deer, but certain products you feed them for certain reasons. You know, not all feeds you the same and things like that. So we're going to go over a little bit of that. Next slide. And then also, you know, when you start talking about feeding deer, we'll talk a little bit about pellets, and then we'll also talk a little bit about blocks and things of that nature, and some of the things that are different, and in addition to kind of what's going on this time of the year out in the field. Next. You know, a lot of people, when you talk about feeding deer, you know, a lot of people think about feeding deer primarily during the spring and the summer months, you know, because that's when those bucks are growing antlers and everybody's trying to raise the biggest deer they can out in the field. And so obviously that's when it's going to get the most attention. But something that a lot of people don't think about, you know, a lot of people turn their protein feeders off come basically this time of year. Once everything goes to hardhorn, they'll usually let those feeders go empty and then start them back up next spring. But there's a lot of things going on out there in that pasture right now that you might consider or think about and keep those feeders going. And, you know, a couple of things you got to think about is obviously the bucks have finished growing. We know that. But also those does have been having fawns on them all summer. And this is the time of the year when those does are drawn down the most. They look the worst in body condition and things like that due to all the milk production all summer. So it's important to keep those protein pellet feeders going this time of year to help those does regain as much of that body weight as they can before they get bred back this fall. that's important on the does. Another thing you don't think about too is those fawns. You know, those fawns have been following mom around all summer, and you know, going to the protein stations or whatever, and they're just kind of imprinting on those protein stations as feed. Well, they're getting about to the age now they can start nibbling on, you know, they are eating some of that feed that goes on the ground underneath them. They're not big enough to reach the tubes yet in most cases, but they're associating that with food. Well, what's fixing to happen over the next few months is those does are going to start weaning those fawns off. So we definitely want to keep those protein feeders going to help those fawns stay on a good nutrition plane during the fall and winter months. So that's something really important to think about. And you know, the other thing too, as I said, in the spring and summer we feed and we focus on antler development, but this time of year we're basically focusing on body condition and keeping those deer as healthy and as fat as we can keep them during the rut and going into the antler growing season next spring. Next slide, Christy. So with all that being said, you know, for those of you that are on a supplemental feeding program, you know, obviously Antler Max Deer 20 was the primary feed you were using during the spring and summer. Well, we switched gears now. Antler development's over. So we need to be thinking about keeping as much weight on those deer as we can the next several months. And there's a couple products that we have that are available depending on where you're at in the country. The Antler Advantage and the Antler Max Rut and Conditioning 16 product. What that product is a 16% protein, 4% fat on both of them. But one of the big differences between them is the Antler Max product is going to have the Climate Guard supplement in it. And what that is basically a supplement that we put in our Antler Max line of feeds. It's going to help keep those deer on good nutrition, coming to those feeders multiple times a day, and basically spreading their feeding period out over the course of the entire day, not just in early mornings and evening and night. And that's really important, obviously, during antler growing season, but it also correlates importantly during the fall and winter periods. So that's going to be your big difference between these two feeds, between the Antler Max and the Antler Advantage. Next slide. You know, another thing that's very popular with folks this time of year is going to be blocks. Blocks are a great alternative. If you can't do a supplemental feeding program, one of your alternatives is to put out blocks. And we've got several blocks in our lineup that we're going to talk about here in a second, maybe some of the differences, but kind of where each one, you know, kind of fits within a program. Next slide. This is just a picture of a big deer. I believe it was from last year, the year before possibly. That's a quick draw block right there. And we'll talk about those kind of blocks here in a second. I had a couple, I think we had one more video, but the video wasn't playing. So unfortunately, we had a little technical difficulties. I had some really cool videos to show you all this evening, but unfortunately, we're not going to be able to see them. You know, some of our blocks, what we call in our sportsman lineup, are basically three blocks I put into this category. You know, if you got game birds out there like pheasant, quail, or especially quail on those properties, that's a bird block we offer. But more on the deer line is basically the Antler Max block and the quick draw block. The Antler Max block is going to be a 33-pound block that's basically Antler Max Deer 20 that's squeezed down into a block form. Very popular during the antler growing seasons. And they're also popular in the fall and winter because of the largest block we make. They're a 33-pound block. So if you want more of a meal protein-based block, the Antler Max Deer block's the one to go with. And then the quick draw block is the primary, our most, I guess, popular block this time of year. That block's going to be a really high corn-based attractant block. It's a smaller block. It's a 20-pound block, but it's very popular this time of year, and it works really well to bringing those deer in front of a trail camera and things like that, where you're trying to see your deer and look at them and so forth. So If you haven't ever tried the quick draw block this time of year, I highly encourage you to try that. Next slide. This is a photo I actually took last week of a buck on a quick draw block. This property right here this was the first time these blocks were ever put out on that property. That evening I did a set there, and this guy came in. So anyway, they're really cool, and you can see in that photo all the corn that's in those blocks. Next slide. Kind of the other blocks that we kind of fit into the backyard enthusiast category. These are folks that just really like to watch deer in the backyard, and that kind of approach is, again, the Antler Max deer block. It's going to be, as I mentioned in the previous slide, it's more of a meal-based block. It's going to have a little whole corn in it, but not a whole lot. And then the premium deer block is another attractant block that works really well, kind of like quick draw. They're kind of similar, but they're different. Premium deer block actually has more corn in it than the quick draw block, but it's been around for a long time. And it's a very, very popular product this time of year for folks that just want to see deer and bring those deer in close. This is a photo right here. That block right there is actually the Antler Max block. You can tell it doesn't have a lot of whole corn in it compared to that quick draw block in that previous picture. But it's used for, during the antler growing season. This is a photo I took earlier this summer of that buck. Obviously, he had a lot of growing out to do yet, the younger deer. Another couple blocks that we have too, they're not really wild or deer related, but we've got a wild bird block that we have in that lineup as well, plus a premium wildlife block for backyard enthusiasts, squirrels and things like that. If you want to learn a little bit more about what we do, you can go a couple different places. You can go to purinamills.com and check out the full lineup of products, or you can also follow us on Purina Wildlife on Facebook. We post several times a week of different things tied back to the seasonality of what's going on in the deer world. So it's a great place to keep up with us and follow us along. And that's going to wrap that part up right there. If you guys got any questions, I guess Christy can roll them into us or try to answer them. And also, too, if you've got any really in-depth questions, you can obviously feel free to send us a message with your email or something like that, or shoot us an email, and I can reach out to you that way, too, if you're interested in setting up a feeding program on pellets or something like that.
So Scott, we had a question that was dropped in on our Zoom chat box tonight, wanting to know if has there ever been any concerns about ants and the blocks attracting ants and that type of scenario.
Ants, you said, Christy?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. No, no, I would say no, not technically. I mean, if you put it in an ant bed, obviously you're going to have ants on it. But no, the ants don't seem to bother those blocks. That's a good question. But no, I have never really had that problem.
Okay. So I had another one that came in. Is how do you keep deer on your property? So if you're a low fence or just range deer, how do you attract those deer onto the property for hunting purposes?
That's a great question. A lot of our customers have some really successful feeding programs on low fence. And what couple tips on that is obviously establishing protein feeder locations or stations on that property is going to be your best bet or your best way to attract deer onto that property. And talking about that a little bit is it all depends on the size of the property, but in a nutshell, you want to put those protein feeders in the center of the property. Keep them off the fence line the best you can, because you want to keep those deer in a central location, basically the center of that property, depending on how it's laid out. Keeping protein pellets out all year long, the Antler Max Deer 20 during the spring and summer, and then the Antler Advantage or the Antler Max wet conditioning products in the fall. It's going to help keep those deer on the property for the most part. Now, except during the breeding season, all bets are off. But outside of that, kind of what I tell people that are getting started on a protein program is think like a big deer does. A buck thinks really about three things. He thinks about getting a bite to eat, and he's going to think about getting a drink of water. and he's going to find some cover to hang out in all day. And that's kind of what that deer does his entire year, except during the rut. So if you can establish those protein feeder stations somewhere near cover and near water, where you're offering that deer everything he needs, his home range is going to be relatively, small, so to speak. Then again, during the rut, it's going to be quite large. But that's just something that seems to keep those deer on a property.
So another question that has come across is talking about mineral. I mean, should we keep those mineral out year round, or can you touch a little bit about mineral and feeding mineral to our deer?
That's a good question, Christy. I didn't have any mineral things in here because a lot of people don't think about it during the fall and winter, but keep that mineral side out year round. Those deer are going to visit it when they need it, kind of deal. If you're feeding a good quality program like Antler Advantage or Antler products, you don't need to keep out the dry mineral. You can, it's not going to hurt anything, but there is a great mineral package in both of those feeds that we developed from all of our research over the years. So those deer are getting the minerals they need. But if you're not feeding, let's say, a pelleted program, and you're only feeding blocks, then yes, I would keep a mineral program out, deer near water, near a food plot, food sources and things like that. So those deer have access to it.
Okay. And one other that came in, Scott, was in regards to, so Greg was asking, in regards to pitting out, say, some wormer, like using, say, the Purina wormer supplement, how would you implement that into your deer feeding program?
The dewormer product is an off-label product. You need to really visit with your vet on that. But basically, it's a product that we have called Purina Wildlife Dewormer Supplement. And you basically put it out twice a year, what I call, excuse me, the 2 T's, Turkey Day and Tax Day. Put it out, before the rut, when they get going into the rut, and then, or right after the hunting period. And then also in the spring green up. There's no withdrawal time on it. It's fenbendazole, kind of a pretty common dewormer ingredient in all species. So that's what the active ingredient is. But get with your local vet on that, and they can help you, some guidance on that one.
Okay, perfect. So what I would like to do real quick here is, as we're going to go through just a few little extra things here, Scott, if you don't mind to hang on, and make sure we don't have any other questions that come across this evening, is, folks, we appreciate you taking the time to join us tonight. And you pull out your iPhone, feel free to text Purina to 95323, and that'll send you a hyperlink that then you can select that and select A for Arkansas, as Farmers Co-op is mainly based in the Arkansas area. And tonight, for that $10 off coupon, we'll be using the Farmers Co-op in Lincoln. The accessibility to this $10 off coupon will end on Saturday, so it sits there for about 2 days for you guys. You will have to fill out a little bit of information, a name and an email address, and you will receive an email back. I have kind of snipped this out to show you what that looks like. And then it'll have a link for you to print off a $10 off coupon to bring into any of your Farmers Cooperative retail locations. And I've listed out for you guys all the locations across Western Arkansas and Eastern Oklahoma that provides a lot, or all of our Purina feeds, a lot of the feeds that Scott has mentioned tonight to you. I know that quick draw blocks is probably one of our #1 selling blocks. And don't hesitate to ask them any questions that you guys might have. If they can't answer you guys, they know how to get a hold of me. And if I can't answer you, I know how to get a hold of Scott. So Scott's been my lean-to in regards to learning more about the wildlife. I also want to let you guys, pardon me?
What do we need to do to get the coupon again?
Absolutely. If you bear with me just a second, I'm going to go right back through that. It's a great question. So guys, we've, with COVID-19, and what we've done is we've taken a lot of our face-to-face meetings and moved those to a virtual platform. And with that, if you guys got any cattle interest, we'll be hosting a cattle chat time on September the 29th. And then we'll have another one on October the 13th. And then October the 27th, discussing some cattle programs for you. And then on October the 8th, we'll have our equine specialist, Ty Cunningham, on the program to talk about some equine supplements. So to go back to the question that was just asked, is if you pull out your iPhone and text in, you're going to text 95323. In the body of that text, you're going to type in Purina, Purina. That will instantaneously send you a thanks little text message back with a blue hyperlink. You'll click on that blue hyperlink. You will have to select A, then select Arkansas, and then tonight to get that coupon is the Lincoln Farmers Co-op and Lincoln Checkerboard Days. So go back through that one more time. So we're going to text 95323, type in Purina. It'll send you a link that will be blue hyperlink. Select A, Arkansas, Farmers Cooperative, and Lincoln Checkerboard Days. It will send you an email, and then you will be able to print off that $10 off coupon. So if you guys have any questions, don't hesitate to stop by any of the 15 retail locations across Western Arkansas, all the way from Mena up to Decatur over into Eastern Oklahoma, Podo, and Salisal area. So we have a full list of all the meetings that we will be conducting running through Thanksgiving time, the week of Thanksgiving, on the Farmers Co-op website. If you register and join us via our Zoom platform, your name will get entered for one of the two $25 gift cards that you can take back into the Farmers Co-op location. And don't hesitate to check us out on Farmers Co-op Facebook page, as we constantly post new information out there, new ideas as well. Scott, so with that, guys, we're going to try to keep these chat times to about 15, 20 minutes, maybe sometimes 30 minutes, depending upon questions. So we're going to call for last round of questions. I am Christy Keeler, the local Purina sales specialist that works with Farmers Co-op. My phone number is listed here on the screen, and that is 830-330-0902. And my email contact is listed there as well, and that's ckeeler@landolakes.com. So we'd like to call for last round of questions. And Scott, if you don't mind to hang out just for a few seconds, so in case if we've got something come across on Facebook. So I did get one that was sent to me in a text message. So when we talk about putting out the quick draw block, is there a time frame of how soon we want to put those blocks out to start kind of baiting those deer up or getting those deer onto our property or anything like that?
A lot of folks, Christy, will use those quick draw blocks to put them in front of trail cameras. When they start putting out trail cameras, they'll use those blocks to kind of get those deer to stand in one spot, so to speak. That way they get as many good pictures as they can. Okay. That's kind of when they kind of kicks in.
Okay, perfect. So Scott, we're not seeing any questions. So we do appreciate you taking the time to join us this evening. And know you was on our platform back in July. You were the first one to kick off our virtual platform. So we appreciate all of your assistance and everything that you've done to help us. So with that, I guess we'll sign off tonight.
Well, I appreciate it. Thanks to the Farmers Co-op and Christy for putting all this together. You guys are awesome.
All right. Thanks so much, Scott. Appreciate you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.